So, I've been working on a video this week about a recent Spider-Man movie. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil it, although this is 2019, so that could be one of literally 4 movies that have come out in the last 2 years. 5, I guess, if you count Venom, and 6 if you count the video game, which might as well be a movie. Anyway, the video is going to be about a particularly silly thing that everybody in the movie is after. And I think if you change that thing for something else that already existed in universe, the movie would make more sense. You'd be able to deliver on some fun themes, pay off some things that are, you know what, it's not important. I'm going to make this video eventually. But I realize as I'm writing this video, I'm using a term to describe the thing everybody's after. The term is MacGuffin. And I think to myself, I know what I'm talking about, right? I mean, I've made 50 plus videos by this point. I'm sure I've used the term MacGuffin several times. I must know what a MacGuffin is. And it turns out I don't. So much of what we currently refer to as a MacGuffin, it's not really a MacGuffin. In fact, we've been using the word incorrectly for so long that it's lost almost all meaning, and at least I think that's bad. So I want to make a case. I'm going to talk about what a MacGuffin is and what it isn't, give you an idea of where this went off the rails, propose a new term we can use in its place, and ask the most important question, does any of this matter at all? So let's start with what it is. A MacGuffin is an object, event, or person that sets the plot of a story in motion, but is otherwise unimportant. It's unclear exactly where this term came from. It was either created by, or at the very least popularized by, legendary filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock, who frequently used MacGuffins in his films. The other person sometimes credited with coining the term is one of Hitchcock's frequent collaborators, writer Angus MacPhail. Either way, Hitchcock is the authority on MacGuffins. So what makes them special? Well, unlike other plot devices, the MacGuffin is vague, interchangeable. According to Hitchcock, it's the unknown plot objective which you do not need to choose until the story planning was complete. And that's the crucial detail. You can write the entire story outline before you need to decide what the MacGuffin actually is. Is it a necklace, or some money, or sand? It does not matter. All that matters is that the characters want to have it, and that kickstarts the plot. For example, in 1944, Hitchcock was working on a spy movie called Notorious, and the MacGuffin he had chosen was uranium sand, mostly because Hitchcock had heard rumors that uranium was going to be a big deal in the next few years. It was. When Hitchcock got some pushback from a producer, he said, I told him that it wasn't the basis for the story, but only the MacGuffin, and I told him that there was no need to attach too much importance to it. Finally, I said, look, if you don't like uranium, let's make it industrial diamond, which the Germans need to cut their tools with. And I pointed out that if it had not been a wartime story, we could have hinged our plot on the theft of diamonds, that the gimmick was unimportant. That's the key. You can write the entire movie around a MacGuffin and then completely change that MacGuffin after the fact with a minimal impact on the overall script. It is purposefully trivial. Some famous MacGuffins include the spy plans in North by Northwest, the Falcon statue in The Maltese Falcon, Marcellus Wallace's briefcase in Pulp Fiction, the rabbit's foot from Mission Impossible 3, and the microprocessors from The Departed. They move the story forward yet have no identity themselves. And look at who is responsible for creating those films. Huston, Tarantino, Abrams, Scorsese, true craftsmen. A MacGuffin is not just an afterthought, it's deliberate. So there you go. That's a MacGuffin. Simple. But then, why was I using this word incorrectly for so long? Like, the Ark of the Covenant. That's not a MacGuffin, and once you talk about what a MacGuffin is, it's pretty clear why. Yes, the Ark of the Covenant is a coveted, important object. Yes, in the beginning of the film, the specifics surrounding the Ark are not important. The Ark is only the thing Indy and Marion and the Nazis are after. Very MacGuffin-y. However, as the film progresses, the Ark does not fade into the background. It becomes more important. Specific rules surrounding the Ark are established, you can't look upon it or bad things happen. And at the end of of the film, Indy needs to exploit those specific rules to defeat the Nazis. And that face-melting rule is tied intrinsically to the arc itself, which means the arc is not an interchangeable object. You can't write Raiders of the Lost Ark and then at the last minute swap out the arc for something like the Holy Grail, and therefore it does not work with the original definition of a MacGuffin. But if you search for the term MacGuffin, you will find many videos and articles that, like myself, don't get that. IGN made a list of the top 10 movie MacGuffins, and at the top you find The One Ring and Rosebud and The Ark of the Covenant. 3 non-MacGuffins. Watch Mojo made a video about what they called plot motivators, where they very confidently state that plot points are the same as MacGuffins, and define a MacGuffin as solitary things that fuel entire storylines, and look what shows up: The One Ring, Rosebud, and The Ark of the Covenant. And to be fair to that IGN article, in its intro it does acknowledge that, while MacGuffins are generally thought of as being meaningless and replaceable, for the purposes of this feature, we're going to define them as objects that motivate a film's characters and propels the narrative along. So, hold on. You're going to include a bunch of things that you acknowledge are not MacGuffins in your list of MacGuffins to make the list wrong? That'd be like if I made a list of the top 10 Arthur episodes, and in the intro, I stated that, while Arthur is generally thought of as being the show Arthur, for the purposes of this feature, we are going to define it as any television program, and then the top 3 Arthur episodes turned out to be Band Geek's Hard Home and The Marine Biologist. So then, why did this happen? Why did this very clearly defined word lose its original meaning? When did we stop caring? Enter George Lucas. 2000s George Lucas. In the DVD commentary for A New Hope, George describes R2-D2 and the Death Star plans as a MacGuffin, but he doesn't leave it there. He disagrees with Hitchcock's interpretation of the word. George believes the MacGuffin should be powerful and that the audience should care about it almost as much as the dueling heroes and villains on screen. So basically, George Lucas thinks a MacGuffin should be not a MacGuffin. It should be something different, but we should call that a MacGuffin. It's like, imagine if I invented something called the Nando cycle. It's a bicycle, but it's got 12 wheels. That's what it is. But then, 60 years later, George Lucas shows up and says, actually, I disagree. I think a Nando cycle should have 13 wheels. To which I would reply, that's not up to you, George. Alfred Hitchcock and Angus MacPhail invented this. It isn't like Hitchcock is some mysterious figure from ancient Babylon who we all need to interpret. He's a guy. There are many interviews where he explains what a MacGuffin is. He loved to talk about them. But no, George Lucas decided that the term was up for interpretation. But 2004 isn't where this really goes off the rails. If you look at the Google Trends for the term MacGuffin, you find 4 specific times when we were at peak MacGuffin. First, Mission Impossible 3. Good. Classic MacGuffin. But then, July 2007. What happened in July 2007? Oh, right. And reviewers, including even Roger Ebert, implored their readers to look up the term MacGuffin when talking about the Allspark, a device that has some MacGuffin-y qualities. It's pretty vaguely defined, but it isn't a MacGuffin, a Hitchcockian MacGuffin. It stays in play throughout the story. Characters use it to do things like kill the villain and bring the product placement to life. Then, May 2008. Look who's back. 2000's George Lucas, and he's brought his good friend 2000's Steven Spielberg, and they are about to release a little movie called Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And some people would describe the Crystal Skull as a MacGuffin. And that top 10 article from IGN that redefines MacGuffin so that the Ark of the Covenant qualifies as a MacGuffin, that article was posted on May 20th, 2008, the day that Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was released. And that last peak, October 2011, that's when Empire released an interview with Steven Spielberg, where Spielberg talked about, what else? Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And he said, I sympathize with people who don't like the MacGuffin, because I never liked the MacGuffin. George and I had big arguments about the MacGuffin. I didn't want these things to be either aliens or interdimensional beings, but I am loyal to my best friend. So So yeah, George Lucas redefined the word in the mid-2000s and Steven Spielberg put it in the books. The other reason I believe the term has become so popular is because of the rise of the superhero movie. So many featured a cube, or a stone, or a mineral, or a codex, or a program. And even though they weren't MacGuffins, we didn't know what to call them. They were a specific thing, like their own kind of plot device, and hey, MacGuffin sounds cool, and it's kind of what they are. So then, what can we do? Movies with these non-MacGuffins aren't going anywhere. What are we going to call them? And as much as I'd like to coin a term like Nandos or MacGuffins, neither of those are all that good anyway, there is already a great term that we just aren't using. It comes from a Nick Lowe, who, very important, is not the cruel to be kind Nick Lowe, different guy. This Nick Lowe is a British academic who writes about classical literature and film. And in a talk given by Lowe that was printed in the science fiction newsletter Ansible, entitled The Well-Tempered Plot Device, Lowe coins a term that I love. He says, it would be much too complicated to have three goodies overcome the whole usurping army. So what you do instead is write into the scenario one or more plot coupons, which happen to be supernaturally linked to the outcome of the larger action. And then all your characters have to do is save up the tokens till it's time to cash them in. Same start as a MacGuffin, but opposite end. The object or person or event becomes extremely important in the final act of the story. You need to obtain the Ark or destroy the One Ring or learn the secret of Rosebud. Once you do that, you resolve the plot. They are plot coupons. Think about, for example, what I would argue are the most frequently misidentified MacGuffins in recent memory, the Infinity Stones. No matter how many articles call them MacGuffins, by their very nature, they can't be. They are not interchangeable. You can't remove the Time Stone from the finale of Doctor Strange, replace it with the Power Stone, and have the same resolution. Not MacGuffins. But they fit the plot coupon description perfectly. They are collected and cached via a supernatural force to resolve the plot of whatever movie they're in, whether that is a movie with an individual Infinity Stone or something like Infinity War or Endgame, where the entire plot is nothing but a character or group of characters on a quest to gather the Infinity Stones so that they can trade them for a plot resolution, either the snap or the unsnap. Plot coupons, all the way. R2-D2 and the Death Star plans need to be collected by our heroes and taken to the Rebellion so that the Rebellion can use the plans to defeat the Empire. They are important, specific, and resolve the plot. Sorry, George, plot coupons. So, the big question, does any of this matter? I think so. It's not an easy concept to understand, and I can appreciate the temptation to call on a term coined by one of the great directors in history as part of everyday film criticism. It sounds cool, gives you some clout. But what's the point of criticism if the words we're using are losing practically all meaning? The fun is in the details, and plot coupon can give us that level of detail that makes film criticism worth something. You wouldn't take a music review seriously if it called John Entwistle a drummer. You wouldn't take a video game review seriously if it called The Last of Us a first-person shooter. You wouldn't take a comic review seriously if it called Groot a member of the Fantastic Four. By describing something like the Ark of the Covenant as a MacGuffin, you are robbing both the word MacGuffin and the Ark of the Covenant of their meaning. We know what a MacGuffin is. Very simply, a MacGuffin is nothing. Seriously, according to Hitchcock, the main thing I've learned over the years is that the MacGuffin is nothing. I'm convinced of this, but I find it very difficult to prove it to others. There is a purpose to a MacGuffin. They are purposefully unimportant, but they exist to highlight what is important. Yeah, in the beginning of the story, the characters care about the MacGuffin. It's the most important thing in the world, but as the story progresses, the MacGuffin falls by the wayside, and the thing that really matters, which in a lot of these cases are the characters' interactions with each other, some sort of game of cat and mouse, that's what matters. Am I being pedantic? Putting too much emphasis on small details? Maybe. Maybe I've just watched The Princess Bride too many times. I'd always rather be an Inigo than a Vizetti. But this video did not start as a video. It started as me just doing some research. I wanted to figure out where this word came from, what it really means. And not only did I find the story interesting, I wish I had known it before I started calling every significant object in a movie a MacGuffin. So I figured I'd share it with you guys. If you want to use plot coupon, go for it. It'll take some explaining, but I think it's a cool term. And if you don't, that's fine too. People will probably still know what you mean. Either way, knowing more about movies is a good thing, especially if you're the kind of person who spends time watching videos about movies. So for the last word, let's look at a clip from an interview with Hitchcock himself, where he tells the joke that apparently gave the MacGuffin its name.
Someone asked, what is a MacGuffin? And it's described in a scene in an English train going to Scotland, and one man says to the other opposite him, he said, what's that package above your head there? And the other man said, oh, that's a MacGuffin. He said, well, what is a MacGuffin? He said, well, it's an apparatus for trapping lions in the Scottish Highlands. The man said, but there are no lions in the Scottish Highlands. He said, then that's no MacGuffin.
Thank you for clearing that up for us.
Oh, and one more thing. If you want to learn more about screenwriting from people infinitely more knowledgeable than myself, I highly recommend reading Robert McKee's book, Story. It is the book on screenwriting. Teaches you about story structure, character development, and so much more. And a great way to read Story and tons of other books is this video's sponsor, Audible. I don't need to explain Audible to you guys, but I will. It's the easiest way to listen to your favorite audiobooks. I've been using Audible for years. Listen to a book while I'm at the gym or in the car, especially when I want to read something but my cats want attention, so I've got to play with them, which makes holding a book impossible. That happens more than you'd expect. You get a credit every month for any audiobook in their store. Unused credits roll over. You can exchange your book if you don't like it, and even if you cancel, you keep the books you already have. And now, for a limited time, Amazon Prime members can start an Audible membership and save 66% off your first 3 months. So you pay $4.95 for the first 3 months, and it's only $14.95 per month after that. This offer is valid from July 1st, 2019 to July 31st, 2019. Visit audible.com/NandoVMovies or text NandoVMovies, all one word, to 500-500 to get started today. So this is the part where I usually do the on-camera segment after the video is over, but I look like a mess today for a very stupid reason, so I'm going to put up pictures of Chris Evans, and you guys can just imagine that that's me. So as always, thank you to everyone that continues to support the channel on Patreon. You guys are the best. If you want to see your name up here, get access to videos early, other cool stuff. I've started doing those streams, twitch.tv/NandoVMovies. The idea is I stream myself playing a video game, but while I'm doing that, I'm also talking about a movie I've recently seen. A couple people have asked, what's the difference between this and Mostly Nitpicking, a podcast where every week you pick apart a piece of pop culture by looking exclusively at the details. It's true that, say, there is a Spider-Man movie that comes out, I would do a stream for it and a podcast. The idea is it usually takes about a week to get the podcast out based on just DJ and my scheduling, and also just maybe not being able to see the movie on the Friday or Saturday night, so we kind of have to work around that. With this, I will do the live stream as the movie is being released in theaters, so if you're trying to figure out if you should go see that movie, you can watch the Twitch stream and then get that information, see it, and then enjoy a hilarious Mostly Nitpicking later that week. Anybody can watch them live, twitch.tv/NandoVMovies, but patrons are the only people that are going to get access to older videos. So if you're a patron and you're not able to watch the stream live, I'll be posting links to the recordings on the Patreon. Another reason to become a patron for literally any amount of money at patreon.com/NandoVMovies. You guys have no idea how much I appreciate it. And lastly, follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/NandoVMovies. It's where I post updates about videos and podcasts, and it's where I put polls about which M&M's commercial is worse, the ones where the people are dating the M&M's or the ones where the M&M's are trying to eat the other M&M's. It was a really close poll. I don't want to spoil it for you, but go to the Twitter and you'll find out who won. I was pretty surprised by the result. That's all I got. I'll see you next time.